At its peak, the industrial factory functioned as a massive, energetic engine. Heavy steel pistons drove thousands of tons of material through the floor, creating a deafening, rhythmic environment that defined the era. Designers built these facilities as permanent monoliths. They were engineered as immovable anchors of the economy, intended to occupy their footprints for centuries. But when the economic demand shifts, or the technology becomes obsolete, the power is cut, the mechanical heartbeat slows, and the roar fades into a final, heavy silence. The human operators leave, but the machinery remains. It enters a dormant phase, where massive, dust-coated gears sit locked to the concrete, holding their weight in the dark. This abandonment triggers a psychological response known as ruinwert, or ruin value. It describes the specific draw we feel toward these massive, silent structures. When the noise and movement of production vanish, our perception shifts. We are left only with the raw physical mass of the equipment, the heavy things that can no longer be moved. In this total stillness, the machines lose their identity as functional tools. They become monuments to their own history, standing like heavy iron markers in a graveyard. To understand how these structures eventually leave the ground, we have to look past the floor and track the path of decay upward. Looking up from the heavy gears, we see the towering superstructure already changing, covered in a flaking oxide skin. This is the core chemistry of oxidation. Moisture attacks the rigid iron lattice, forcing a conversion into iron oxide that expands and fractures the material. This microscopic expansion acts as a slow-motion wedge, prying massive steel joints apart and systematically dismantling the entire frame. The massive metal frame was designed to withstand incredible mechanical loads, yet it possesses no defense against the simple, persistent presence of damp air. Rust is an active force of entropy. It moves upward through the building, physically erasing the factory's weight by turning solid steel into falling dust. The apex of the building is usually the first part of the architecture to fail. The rafters, once the highest point of human engineering, begin to bow under the strain of their own decay. Without maintenance, the failure is a predictable sequence. Water pools on the roof, rot compromises the timber, and the massive trusses eventually lose their strength. The ceiling gives way, creating a critical breach in the building's closed environment. Sunlight and weather pour through this opening, reaching the mechanical floor for the first time in decades. As the dusty plates of the roof shatter, the rigid system of the factory floor opens up to the expansive system of the sky. Now fully exposed, the hollow of the peak acts as a natural funnel. Winds blow through the breach, depositing soil and seeds into the ruins below. Biological reclamation follows the path of the metal. Aggressive vines spiral up the rusted pillars, consuming the industrial geometry as they grow. The mechanical roar of the past is gone, replaced by the sound of wind and the movement of organic life. Nature repurposes the obsolete machine, turning the dead iron into a living scaffold that reaches toward the light. The visual of a factory dissolving into the sky moves the narrative from the tragedy of abandonment toward a state of quiet stasis. This decay marks a return to thermodynamic equilibrium. It is a final stillness where the artificial energy used to build the factory is eventually neutralized by the environment. The silent language of the ruin tracks the friction between two different timelines, the brief, intense burst of human construction and the slow, patient return of the landscape. As the ascent reaches its end, the heavy creations of industry lose their weight, finally bleeding into the endless white of the natural world.